As you know, we're missing our consecrated brothers, unfortunately. So we're only at about 3/4 strength. So I'm recording the class for them. I'm doing a video and audio recording. I don't know if it will, if y'all have questions, if I can turn it around and get you on there. I'll try. Actually, I probably won't know until we view it later, so maybe we shouldn't do that. But anyway, if there's anybody who would not want to be on video, either wave your hands now or say it then. Don't record me or something, and I won't turn it around. But I think I'll probably, just to be safe, probably have to repeat your questions anyway, since I'm not sure how they'll come out from a distance, and I probably shouldn't, given the reasons why we're missing our other brothers, why we probably shouldn't come right up and be in your face with the machine. Okay, first thing, the syllabus. I apologize. I'm very sorry for the confusion. Here's the tail. The tail of the confusion is that we started this semester with a number of videos in the tank, because at just about this point last semester, as you all know, we went home and went to online recording. So I thought because of the videos, we might be able to cover a bit more, and we're not really doing writing other than the tests. To some extent, I think there's still some truth to that, but this is a big group, and y'all have a lot of questions. I would hate to cover 10 lessons badly just so we can get to an 11th lesson, I guess. Or not badly, I don't think it would be bad, I think more incompletely. As you probably saw yesterday, I sent you a message around 8:30 in the morning, and then another one around 5:30. Really, the one at 5:30 is the more important one, and I'll be circulating a new syllabus probably Monday. I'm hoping for Monday. And what we're going to be doing, well, like I said in my last message, I think we're just a little bit too bunched up. We've got what would have in other years been 2 lessons. Well, like in penal law here, we started thinking we would do 3 or 4. We got about a lesson behind. Well, maybe we can do it in 3, because you're not really writing on it, so you're not as edge of your seat as maybe other years would have been. But it's still a complicated and important area, maybe even more important now that it's about to be reformed. So I think it really still makes sense for us to have 4 lessons on penal law. As I said, this kind of corresponds to what would be marriage law in Canon Law I. I mean, if there's one thing that people out there in the world want you to have studied in this class, it's penal law, just as it's going to be marriage next semester. Not that every people out in the world are always correct, but there's something to that view. It is not something that just comes out of nowhere. So we're going to make space to, that's what I sent you the email about. We've got space now to go 4 full days on lesson 6. Unfortunately, I'd hoped to have a reading day for y'all, and at least temporarily, that's sacrificed. It could come back. We've got 2 more we spent last time on. This is our second lesson on our second session on penal law. Then we've got 2 more. Now the next 2, you've got a video for each one. Each video is about 40 minutes. You could, if you were unanimous or nearly unanimous in this, you could watch both videos for next time, get all your questions, and if they magically could be answered in the space of 1 class period, the following class period could be a free one. The only thing is that depends on everybody, doing the reading and watching both videos before our next class. I think it's too much. I think we're better off to go with we can still, as I said in the email, we can delay both classes because they're mostly going to be question sessions. Um, but at least for the time being, that's what I think we should plan to do. So for next time and the time after, start 15 minutes late like we did before. But if anybody feels strongly, I mean, like I say, it's a possibility if y'all want, don't have a big weekend plan and want to just make it the Canon Law weekend to end all weekends. I mean, I'm I'm open to that, to having class Tuesday and covering the next two things, but I don't think I'd necessarily recommend it, even though it would give us a long weekend. Does anybody want to be heard on that or have an opinion on that?
I'd be interested in entertaining a vote. For the record, if nothing, I mean,
Sure.
not that the students decide,
Okay, good. Let's yeah, no. We're all in this. So
to be sure, when are you talking about having the exam then in this case?
okay, so the right now we're looking at it on the 30th. So we'll do lesson 7 after this lesson. That's on the Supreme Authority. And then the test is scheduled for really what would have been our reading day, the 30th. Let's see, is that 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks would be 2 weeks from today. So we'd finish penal law. So then we'd have our next test on 3 lessons, 5, 6, and 7. I really think it's better for, as far as the test goes, originally we're going to test 5 and 6. I really think it's better for you to test 3 lessons, so there's not as many on the last one. And also, if we're only testing 2 lessons, the questions are going to have to be pretty detailed, and that's that can be more difficult. Okay, but let's just in case we do this, let's look at how much material it is and how much reading it is. It would be, let's see here. The reading would be, we're still in lesson 6. The videos are each about 40 minutes. They're one slightly under, one slightly over. So together they're 82 minutes, I think. And the Woodall reading. This kind of also depends if you're up to date on your reading. The reading for today was 484 to 494, plus a section on about a 15-page section. So really just 10 pages, and some of that skimming, but then about a 15-page section. I think that was originally supposed to be for skimming on kind of the British. It's a kind of kind of the British analog to some of the big studies we've had here. I think that is still worth your while, but as I said in the messages, it's we probably won't have too much time to discuss it, so you can skim it or omit it. That's 527 to 543. So for today, there were really just 10 pages and some of that skimming. For next time, what we're covering in our next 2 lessons, if we have them, it's hard to say the pages because they're documents, they're not Woodall. We've got SST, that's John Paul's document on penal law. It's not too long, but there's norms, probably with the document and the norms together. It's 10 or 12 pages, but some of that reads fast. That's kind of those pages that you print out when you print out stuff from from the Vatican website, but a lot of it is norms, so there's a lot of white space. So I don't think it would take you a half hour to get through SST. And then the Dallas Charter and norms, probably about the same time. Probably take about a half hour, maybe a little bit more. The norms are a little bit long, and this really important article, not too long, I think it's about 6 pages, by Sarah McDonald about this very instructive but very sad case of an accused Irish priest. The title kind of tells you this, right? Guilty until proven innocent. And then I made this optional, the John Coughlin article, The Clergy Sexual Abuse Crisis and the Spirit of Canon Law. I still recommend that pretty highly, but it's optional. I think that's about a 20-page article. It's very good. It would probably take, but it's like a journal article, so it would probably take closer to an hour than a half hour to read. So not a ton of reading, but then the let's see the vid. Oh, actually these videos are not quite as long as I thought. One is 25 minutes and one is 47, so it's 72, not 82. Okay, yeah, let's entertain Mr. LaPointe's idea and see if we want to see if we can get through. Now, if we do it, we're not going to start late. We're going to do a whole class period in the interest of getting everything done. Mr. Williams.
So to be sure, the vote is whether to have it next Friday or the following Friday.
This is just whether to have class. We're going to have class Tuesday, and it's basically whether to have class on Friday or not, a week from today. So you still have an assignment, but do you want to get the reading day back? But you really got to do the reading for it's not all that much. It's not all that much. It's more. It's the reading and the videos, but so it's. I think to do both. I think 3 hours would be enough. Maybe a little more. I don't think you'd need 4 though. So yeah. So that's our proposal. If we're definitely having class on the 20th, and do we have class on the 23rd? Essentially, we want to preserve our reading day on the 23rd, though I think maybe we'd be shifting it, and then just do the reading ahead. Is that clear? Is that clear what we're voting on? Any questions?
How does it affect the exams?
It won't affect it at all, because then there's just nothing to do. What you were going to do Friday, you've already done. But then we've got a lesson after that. We've got lesson 7 after that. Now, just one day on lesson 7. Now, lesson 7, I mentioned that we're spreading things out more than the original syllabus. The areas where we're really doing that, especially this lesson and lesson 8. We're going to try to do lesson 8 all in one session, and we're going back to what we would have done in previous years, doing it for 2. Now, lesson 7, that also originally had been 2, but we're going to, and it only scheduled for 1 this year. But that I think we really can do in 1, because there's only, let's see, there's 17 pages of reading, but about 5 of that is for skimming. So it's basically 12 pages in Woodall, not many canons, and then 40, 50, 2 videos, but together they're less than an hour. That's lesson 7. So that really, for one of the 2 lessons, there's no reading. Essentially, there's zero reading, and for the other one, it's pared down from what it would have been in previous years. So I think that one's pretty manageable. Any other? Did I answer your question, Mr. Wolewski? So basically, we'd have lesson 7 on the 27th, and the test on the 30th, 2 weeks from today. And the LaPointe motion is to reclaim the reading day for a week from today. Is that pretty clear? Any questions? Okay, how many in favor of the LaPointe motion? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How many opposed? Is that right? Did everybody get counted who was for the LaPointe motion? Let's do them, raise them high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, 13. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 13 to 4. Can the opposed live with this, or is this going to ruin your life? The opposed, the nay party. Sorry. You wait. You what? You were in favor. You were to get a free day back, a reading day back. Do you want to switch? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hallen.
If we did not have the reading day, what would we do?
What we do is essentially you'd have
Like
we
question day?
yeah we'd have basically a question day on the second video, which is on the thing is, this is what we're looking at. These are the things, remember, from the Arrieta and Ratzinger documents, the problems with penal law from the original code. Well, the fix for that is SST and kind of Dallas, and so there's kind of a lot to say about that. And that's, if heaven forbid, y'all ever have to deal with this personally, which I don't think anybody will, but even advising other people, it's SST and those norms that are kind of controlling. So there's a lot to talk about. Well, why don't we do this? Let's provisionally say, because the thing is, if y'all do the reading by Tuesday, and we have our class Tuesday as normal, we'll know by the end of class whether we've covered everything. If 10 people still have questions, we can have that session, or just have the session for those 10 people too. That's fine as well. Okay, so we will provisionally power through for Tuesday and hope to have our fall reading day back, our sleeping/reading. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Let's. Okay. I just want to record our list of, if I can, our list of stuff to do. Sorry.
You want to use this table back here and just keep the thing mounted on the table? Would that be easier?
It probably would be, but we're less than an hour. Thank you. That's a. You know what? We unfortunately may be in this situation later, so we should probably do that then. This is not. This does not look very good on the screen. I hope y'all can kind of read this. Okay, so last time what we did is we talked about the difference between latae sententiae and ferende sententiae penalties. I think we covered that, but if anybody's not clear, we can touch that briefly again. Anybody have a question on that? Okay, good. All right, then our next area is the what we could call the typology of penalties. So we've got, could say we've got two main types: medicinal penalties and expiatory penalties. And our medicinal penalties are going to also be called censures. So as the name implies, and this is, if you're going along in Woodall, this is at about 470. We call, now this may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but censures are the most serious kind of penalties. The reason they're called medicinal is because their primary intention, remember we talked about the objects of penal law, kind of the reform of the wrongdoer, the repair of scandal, and the repair of injustice. This is very much, as the name medicinal implies, the real purpose of it is to call back the offender. It's to, in a sense, applying strong medicine so that they'll realize the problem and they will come back. We'll get to expiatory penalties in a moment, but just the kind of the short thing. What's the main object of expiatory penalties? If the main object of censures is to call back the erring person, the main object of expiatory penalties is to punish. Now, for both, though, it's not all or nothing. We're sort of saying the main object of each. All of those concerns that we talked about before, the repair injustice, reform the offender, they matter in all kinds of penalties. But the accent in the censure is on the calling back. And in the expiatory penalty, it's on the punishment. Okay. We've got three types of censures, or three. There are three censures, not three categories, but just three instances of censures, and they are on the board. Excommunication, interdict, and suspension. Excommunication and interdict can be applied to any of the faithful, but suspension only to a cleric. Now, let's start with excommunication. We talked about this somewhat last time. Kind of for all of the effects of excommunication, look at Canon 1331. There's like 5 listed and then some additional ones. If it's a late sententiae excommunication, and then it's later declared. But some of these effects, they kind of seem repetitive. They kind of sometimes seem like they're saying the same thing a little bit over and over. So we'll focus on some of them over others. So no ministerial role in the Eucharist or public worship, no celebrating the sacraments, and no receiving the sacraments. So like these first two, I mean, they seem like they're sort of overlapping. No ministerial role in the Eucharist, no celebrating of the sacraments. They're not. Maybe they're not identical, but it seems like we could have maybe gotten them under one provision. But then also some impacts your forbidden to exercise your office or governance, or perform acts of governance. Now we're assuming right now that this is an undeclared late sententiae excommunication. And we said last time that what happens if it goes to declared, some additional circumstances follow. And again, we're not going to detail all of them, but a couple of the clearest ones. One is that the one we talked about last time was that these the exercise of governance, once it's declared, or if it's a ferende sententiae excommunication that's imposed, then the exercise of governance, doing delegations, giving dispensations, that kind of thing, then that's not only forbidden, but it's invalid. So that's going to be a big difference between declared and undeclared. The same is probably true up here, but it's just stated under one as far as exercising one's office. But it's stated in section 2 of Canon 1331, the way where the emphasis seems to be more on governance. But then another key thing, we said here that you cannot celebrate the Eucharist or other public worship if it's declared or imposed. Not only can you not celebrate, but you are to be prevented from celebrating. I'm not sure who has the obligation to prevent, but it's not just you shouldn't do this. It's you are to be prevented. Now, if you're the parochial vicar and the pastor's excommunicated, and is that on you? Hopefully, he'll be removed from office too before you have to decide just how much force you're going to use to do this. Mr. Grief.
That was my question.
Oh, okay, good. Did you know about that?
No, I think, didn't you read about it somewhere?
It is. I think it's in the canon, but I think Woodall mentions it too.
Those abbreviations below receiving, can you explain those one more time for me, please?
Sure.
EXER office or something like that?
Oh yeah, exercising
Okay.
exercising one's office, and this is GOVC, governance, exercising. So this is going to be Canon 1331, section 1, and then over here it's going to be 1331, section 2, telling us what happens if the penalty is declared. Is that clear? To kind of see what we're talking about. So if it helps you to have some examples in mind, let's kind of add them. The pastor in your parish denies the doctrine of the divine motherhood of Our Lady. Oh, congratulations, you are a heretic. This is you're a heretic because this is a dogma that belongs to divine revelation. It's not only an authentic teaching, it belongs to divine revelation, and you only have to deny one of those to get the big H. So your pastor has the big H. Now, probably, if there's any decent governance in your diocese, as I'm sure there is in all of yours, it won't take too long before, especially if the pastor keeps repeating this or goes off into other heresies. So probably will not be too long before some intervention happens. So here you can see he became a heretic right when a syllable got out of his mouth. Right? He's a heretic. I mean, we may not see it, but it's happened. But it's something like that. That's a public situation, and it concerns a leader in the church, certainly the leader of the parish community. It's that's when you're going to get it. You're going to get it declared. Heresy is a crime that's punished by a late sententiae excommunication. Boom! It happened, but we don't really see it happen until we get the Federal Express package, the certified letter, giving your golden H for your scrapbook. There we can see when declaring is going to come into effect. There is such a thing as ferende sententiae excommunication. I think late sententiae is more common. It's usually going to be for particularly serious crimes. What about undeclared? The thing is, a lot of penalties can go. Late sententiae penalties can go undeclared forever. And the one where is going to be uppermost in your mind, all of our minds, is probably going to be abortion, because that's something that if you're ministering in if you've been ministering in the U.S. at any time as a priest for years, you would have the faculty to remit that censure. But in the year of mercy, Pope Francis, we're virtually certain, Pope Francis gave the faculty, I think we can say we're certain. I'll tell you why I'm saying I'm hedging a little bit. But Pope Francis gave the faculty to all priests, to all confessors, to absolve the penalty for abortion, to absolve the excommunication. Even the priests of the Society of St. Pius X. The only reason I say we're virtually certain, I think it's very clear from Francis's document. The document is called Misericordia et Misera, and it's from the year of mercy. The only reason you could say, and you may remember this from the time when it came out, Francis mentions the sin of abortion. He does not mention the delict. So we're concerned with both. I think it's pretty clear why on earth would he want to give priests in a sense, you kind of already had the faculty to absolve the sin of abortion. It's kind of the delict that's the problem. So I think you can just assume. I thought maybe there would be a clarification on this, but there really hasn't been. I think it's kind of, we've gone by common sense, and I think you can assume that. So that, I don't know if that look at the numbers. That affects a lot of people in this country. It ain't all Protestants having these things. But has one ever been declared? Has one of these excommunications ever been declared? Maybe, but I don't know about it. I've never heard of it. So, Mr. King.
Two questions.
Okay. Do you want your 15 minutes of fame, Mr. King? Okay. Can you see yourself? You should be able to see yourself. You can see yourself. They can see. Okay. Good.
So one.
Wave to our consecrated brothers. Okay. All right. Mr. King has the floor.
One thing, what about someone who's already committed an abortion but wants to enter the church? How does that work?
Someone who they've committed an abortion and want to enter the church. Well, they can. I mean, I'm sure we've had that. You mean like before this? If they're. I see what you're saying. They No, they would. I think then we would say that they really the penal law is, I think we call it ecclesiastical law. So since they're not in the church yet, the sin is still there, and it's still a dreadful thing. But they're not in to be excommunicated from yet, as you say. So I don't think they have to worry about fixing that under penal law, and more fixing it in terms of confession, their first confession or baptism. Okay. Camera or no camera?
Doesn't
Done.
matter.
Okay. All right. Who was first, Mr. Walewski or Mr. Subject? You could see both of you, Mr. Walewski. So you know, so you're on your honor here.
So with absolution, like in the case of like an abortion, does the absolution get rid of the delict as well, or does that have to be even though it's not been announced, even though it's undeclared?
Good.
How does that work?
Good. Okay, so I'm going to repeat it just in case. In fact, sorry, I did not repeat Mr. King's question. Mr. King's question was, or did I repeat it? Did I repeat his question? No. But Mr. King's question was, what if somebody's had an abortion or performed an abortion and comes into the church? What do they need to do? If they were outside of the church, excommunication is not their worry, the sin. So it's going to be addressed entirely in baptism or their first confession. And Mr. Walewski asked this key because we said last time one of our key themes is that sins and delicts are different things, but they can intersect, and they do here. Abortion's both heresy too. Well, really, in principle, all of these things, right? I mean, we're not going to excommunicate you if you didn't do something you shouldn't have done. So the sin category is going to be a lot bigger than the delict category, but here they overlap. So Mr. Walewski asked, do they need to be, if I have the faculty to absolve, do I absolve them separately? Do they get absolved together? Really important thing. You absolve them together, but you need to have that intention. So your intention when you're in this situation is to both absolve the sin. We usually say remit the delict. You can also say absolve the delict, but it might help you to keep them distinct by using the different verbs, but it doesn't matter. Okay, we've solved the problem, but how am I going to remember this? I haven't even had coffee today, so how am I going to remember this back when I'm ordained in 2 or 3 years? Here's have we talked about, did we talk about virtual intention yet? Was that on our quiz? I think it was on the quiz in Canon Law I. So, now I sent you a handout from Westman. I'm not sure if he deals with that, but Woodall does. But he deals with it in terms of concelebration. So really, Canon Law II. And here's the problem that he raises, and I think maybe you'll see why it's similar to the one that Mr. Walewski raises. He says, what if you're concelebrating and there's just a lot of people and you can't see what the main celebrant is doing. There's 50 concelebrants. It's really a momentous occasion in your diocese or the country or the Pope's visiting or something. You're thrilled to be there, but you can't see anything. You're supposed to be. You're celebrating. You're concelebrating. How can I intend to consecrate what I can't see? So Woodall says what you do is you form a virtual intention, and your virtual intention is in concelebration. When I'm in this situation, my intention is to consecrate whatever the main celebrant is holding, whatever's on the corporal, and whatever else the main celebrant intends. Remember, in this situation, you might all be holding your own, ciborium or something. Or I don't know. Actually, they probably would try to put them on the altar, I suppose, at least. But anyway, those three things: what he's holding, what the main celebrant's holding, what's on the corporal, and whatever else he's intending. So, and Woodall makes this very, very nice suggestion. When do you form this intention? He says he gives two good options. Holy Thursday is a good day to do it. You don't just form it, you renew it every now and then, probably once a year. Either the anniversary of your ordination or Holy Thursday. I can't think of a better day. I think those would be the most appropriate. So you do that, so you're kind of reminding yourself that this is my virtual my virtual intention that when this happens, I've got this. So that also takes care of it when your mind wanders too. What if you can see, but you're so excited because the Pope's here, and you get distracted even when you shouldn't be distracted? It happens. We're human. So this would take care of that situation. But we've got this other situation that Mr. Wilewski mentions. I was so concerned with kind of giving the advice and the comfort to this distraught person that I somehow forgot my October 16th, 2020 Canon Law lesson when we all looked like terrorists with masks on our faces. So we include that in our virtual intention too. And there's probably other things too, but I think these are two good examples. So you can either, and when you're doing it, it's good if you intend that anyway. But if you have this, so you've got this habitual intention, but you want to renew it so you don't forget that you've done it. And again, Woodall's suggestion I think is outstanding. Either you don't have to do that. Do your mother's birthday if you want to, but Holy Thursday and the day of your ordination just seem like really good days for that. Good question. Anything else? Oh, sorry, Mr. Sobchak.
I have a very quick question about the prevention. Because we have about prevention against the priest. Yeah, I'm a parochial.
Wait, I'm sorry, prevention?
No, like prevention.
Oh, okay.
Customers to celebrate. So I just don't know, like knock them down and put them in the basement. Yeah, like Saint Nicholas. But prevention against the people, like lay people. So for example, like I have this example in Poland. This happened. Like a politician, he voted for abortion, and just 2 hours after voting, his bishop excommunicated him. But he especially go on Sunday Mass and receive communion. Because it was like, showing that I'm still in the communion of the church. So am I able to say no, go away, or, it's like...
Absolutely. Now that's a little bit that's dealt with in a so Mr. Sobchak asks, we said that when an excommunication is, an undeclared one is declared, or a ferende sententiae excommunication is imposed, then not only is the priest forbidden from celebrating Mass, he is to be prevented from doing so. Again, I don't know. I'll see if I can find anything on campus. I'm not really sure how much force you're supposed to use. But Mr. Sobchak asked kind of a related question. There was a politician in Poland who was a promoter of abortion, and he was excommunicated by his bishop, but just 2 hours later, wanting to make a statement, he went to Mass to receive communion. So there are kind of our authority in that situation is going to be Canon 915, which says someone who's excommunicated is not to be admitted to Holy Communion. Now, in a perfect world, you would never have to worry about Canon 915, because in a perfect world, Canon 916, which says any person conscious of grave sin should not present themselves to Holy Communion. So in a perfect world, everybody's well-formed, everybody's thinking with the mind of the church, so they wouldn't approach themselves. But Mr. Sobchak is telling us that we're not in a perfect world. And he may just be right. So we need 915 to say, yeah, if there's somebody who is excommunicated or under interdict, they're not to be admitted to communion. So that's a responsibility for the minister of communion, especially the pastor in the parish and the bishop of the diocese, but not only them. Mr. Crabtree, gonna be on or no?
It doesn't matter. It's related to his. If excommunication is late sententia and undeclared, does that also include Canon 915? Example is like Joe Biden's situation in North Carolina.
Yeah, let's see what it says. I don't think that it differentiates, but let's take a look. Those upon whom it says imposed or declared. Yeah, it does say imposed or declared.
Okay, so it would have to be
Yeah, so it would apply to Mr. Sobchak's example because it was the bishop actually declared it or imposed it, and but as far as we know, has not happened in Joe Biden's case. Yeah. If anybody here is different, let us know. Any other questions, Mr. Blatchford?
What happens if like two bishops are at odds with the situation? Like one bishop excommunicates and the other one doesn't think he should be excommunicated, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
either or diocese and not receive.
Yeah, Mr. Blatchford asked, well, what if, and especially this really ties into Mr. Sobchak's and Mr. Crabtree's point, because especially in the U.S., legislators, at least, they live in two places. They live in Washington and they live where they are from. So they literally have at least two different bishops. And you're correct that they may disagree. Those two bishops may disagree. So if you're excommunicated, this is going to come under the subject of the cessation of penalties, but we'll just mention it briefly here. In that situation, the penalty travels with you. You're excommunicated wherever you go, but who can lift it? If you go into another diocese, that other bishop can lift it, if it's not reserved to the Holy See, but he's supposed to consult with the bishop who imposed it. So it can be the one who imposed or declared it lifts it, or wherever the person is present, which does create some difficulties. Again, shows us something we talked about before: the importance of territory in the church. Still have that kind of that legacy. So I don't know. It seems like there probably have been, and I'm sure way back, there probably are some interesting examples of sort of feuding bishops and stuff with just that very thing happen. Well, I'm going to go shopping for a friendly bishop. And doesn't, just I think because we don't have that many penalties imposed and declared, I don't think it comes up. But it maybe, it certainly could. Certainly could. Okay, let's see. Anything else about excommunication? Sort of our general principle is going to be, and Woodall says this on 472, that excommunication affects acts of governance, the exercise of office, not primarily the sacraments, though. So now, in the real world, if this happens to our pastor in our church, he's almost certainly going to be either removed as pastor, or if he's parochial vicar, have his faculties taken back, and then he can't because of that reason, but not because of the penalty. What about marriages? I saw what I think is kind of a disagreement between two authorities. We talked about this last time. Woodall, and it seems to me like Woodall's on good grounds here. He says that Woodall takes the position that I can't find it right now, but he takes the position that let's see, I think it's 473 and 474 where he talks about this, that a marriage officiated by, if the person's a pastor or a diocesan bishop, and he officiates at a marriage, Woodall says that's invalid. Now, it's kind of an interesting reason. It's invalid because it's not because of his exercise of the sacraments, because he's not the minister of that sacrament, right? So it's because he's forbidden to exercise acts of governance, and that's more an act of governance. So that's Woodall's thinking. But there's another authority who doesn't quite come out. His name's Rankin, wrote a big book on penal law, John Rankin. Or is anybody nobody's from Springfield, I don't think. I think Rankin is from Springfield. And Rankin doesn't quite come out and say it, but it looked to me like, I was looking at it last night, like he was implying that maybe the marriage is valid. I think Woodall's on good ground here. In any event, the other sacraments, let's just say at least marriage is a special case. I think Woodall is well taken, but worth looking into. If anybody wants to, can look into this further and see what other people say. The other sacraments, at least because of the penalty, are not invalid. They're going to be, if they're invalid, it's because the pastor lost his office or the parochial vicar had his faculties taken away. Why is that? That's weird. Why not make it more invalid? Like we made acts of governance invalid, and sacraments are more important than that, really for the benefit of the faithful, so the faithful don't have to worry about the validity of their sacraments, especially in situations that aren't their fault. Okay, our next censure is interdict, and interdict is it looks like it should be a big enough board, but it just isn't. So, well, we're going to just have to overlap. We're going to say, we're going to use part of, we're going to underline in a squiggly line what applies to interdict that we already said about excommunication. So, if you look at well, Woodall talks about this on 472. You may have heard historically of interdict as like a territorial thing, about a territory put under interdict, that the whatever Duke of Lorraine was rebellious, and so all of Lorraine is put under interdict. That's not our current concept. Those were the good old days. We are in the less exciting days. So it's not a territorial concept anymore. To find out what it is, you look at 1332, which tells us one who is under interdict is obliged by the prohibitions of Canon 1331, sections 1 and 2, and if the interdict was imposed or declared, the provisions of section 2, number 1 are to be observed. What that basically said means we have to find out what interdict means, we have to go back to the previous canon on excommunication. And basically, what it starts off by saying is these three things. The ministerial role in the Eucharist, celebrating the sacraments, and receiving the sacraments. Holy cow, that sounds just like excommunication. Why do we need them both? We're going to get a clue by looking at the Eastern Code. The Eastern Code is actually better drafted than the Western Code. And what's instructive about the Eastern Code is it doesn't use the term interdict. It calls it, what we call interdict, it calls lesser excommunication. And what we call in the West excommunication, the Eastern churches call major communication. Very helpful terms, both from the East. So if we're going to think of interdict as a lesser excommunication, what we're saying is it's a little bit less. It's a little bit less than excommunication. The main things that we think of with excommunication, don't celebrate the sacraments, don't receive the sacraments, they're present in interdict. What's not present? There's stuff about exercising the office in governance. That is excommunication, but not interdict. So interdict's a little less. It's a little less than excommunication. We feel the boom of the prohibition on the sacraments, but we don't. It doesn't affect offices, and governance. It will to some. It will to some degree, but not nearly as much as excommunication does. And Woodall talks about this on 473. Why do we need both then? They seem so similar. Why do we need both? Maybe we don't. But one reason for it, one one kind of pastoral situation where it could be helpful is if you think there's a chance there's somebody who's really done something pretty bad, but you think there's a chance that they could come back, or you they have a following and you're also concerned about the state of their followers. Interdict can leave you a little bit of room to maneuver. It's not as just the most people just don't know what it is for one thing. But so it doesn't have that colossal atom bomb feel that excommunication is going to have, even though it's really only a little bit less. So it can leave the bishop some room to maneuver. We'll put you under interdict, and you didn't miss a beat. Now I'm going to ratchet up to excommunication, at least in some instances, and maybe that can have some effect on the faith. It really depends on the offender we're talking about. That's one reason. I'm not sure if maybe there's other reasons as well, or maybe we have it primarily because of historical reasons. We've had it so long, and who wants to live in a world without interdict? Mr. Sobchak.
I think it's very interesting about the example of interdict in Poland. John Paul II, Archbishop of Krakow, he imposed interdict for all parish.
I'm sorry, he did what?
He put interdict for all parish, all territory, because of the procession of the Corpus Christi, and during communism time, communists made some riots against the procession, and the people from the procession start fighting. And the fight was that big that they pushed priests out of the road, and they crushed monsters, and the Holy Sacrament jumped to the man. So next day,
Really?
the Wojtyła came to parish to read interdict, took sacrament from the parish, and priest was a couple of years. There was no priest in the parish and no Holy Sacrament.
Is that right? Well, so Mr. Sobchak is talking about a story where the Eucharist was damaged because of a kind of a riot in Poland, and John Paul removed it, and for a long time the parish didn't have the Eucharist. It wasn't that situation, but there was kind of a situation in Minnesota a number of years ago. I don't think it was Kirkston. No, you know what? I think it was New Ulm. I think it was. I'm not positive, but I think it was New Ulm, where there was kind of a dispute between a fairly large group of the faithful and church authority over a number of things going on in the parish and the school, and I think they did. I'm not sure if they took out the sacrament. I think they may have actually stopped celebrating Mass there, and so it was almost like a reach back to the more historical times when that was kind of a possibility. Okay, so not too much more to say about interdict, other really the Easterners have said most of it for us. And then our last censure is suspension. So we said this affects only clergy. Question to ask yourself, should it affect laity? We've got laity holding offices now, and suspension is mostly about, it's not only about your office, but what happens with suspension is that it's going to affect some or all of your acts of orders, your acts of governance, and your functions of office. So it's almost always going to be ferende sententiae, because that's all the canon says, is that it depending on the way it's phrased, it affects some or all of your acts of orders, acts of governance, and functions of office. So we really kind of need to know what the sentence is. I think there are some latae sententiae suspensions. I don't know what the content of them is, because it's not specified that it would be in a sentence. I don't know if it's just assumed it would be the maximum content you're suspended of all exercise of orders, governance, or office. But it does not, so it affects the validity of your acts of governance, like a declared excommunication, but not the validity of your sacraments. Again, with that question about marriage that we've got on the back burner. Okay, so we said so we're done with censures, our medicinal penalties, and now we're going to go to our other option, our expiatory. So expiatory penalties, they're kind of aimed to, in a sense, aimed to punish. They're aimed more at repairing scandal or injustice more than at recalling the offender, though still with that intention as well. And they can be temporary or permanent. What would be some examples? A prohibition on living in a certain place, or an obligation to live in a certain place. You really messed up. You're going to go live in a monastery in the Pyrenees for the rest of your life. I don't know if this is a penalty, but Cardinal McCarrick is or Mr. McCarrick is somewhere in the middle of the country, and I think Kansas. Actually, is it Kansas?
I think he's in Florida right
Florida? What's he doing in Florida? If you know, don't answer. If you don't know, don't make anything up. So I don't even know how to edit these. So being required to live somewhere or forbidden from living in a place, that could be an expiatory penalty. Being deprived of an office, a power, a right, a privilege, some dignity, something you have maybe that can be taken away. A transfer to a different office, obviously probably going to be one of lesser esteem, otherwise what kind of a penalty is it? Or the most important one, especially in the age of the abuse crisis, is dismissal from the clerical state. So this is where your return to the lay state as a penalty. Expiatory penalties are, I think Woodall says they're usually imposed ferende sententiae. I think they probably have to be imposed ferende sententiae because, again, we have the same problems with suspension. What's the content? What's the content here? One thing they cannot take away from you is your academic degrees. So no matter what crime you commit, no matter what depravity you sink into, no matter how low you go, you'll always have your MDiv. So everything else, your office, your membership, your official membership in the clerical state, your dignities, your title as cardinal, they can take that away, but not your bachelor's degree, not your master's. So that's expiatory penalties. All right, that's our typology of penalties. Sort of a quick review. We sort of have four things to keep in mind: expiatory penalties, ferende sententiae penalties. Look out for the word imposed, and then two instances of late sententiae, declared or undeclared. That's kind of what our universe is. Okay, so let's go to the application of penalties. What we're concerned with, especially here, is there's essentially two ways that penalties can be imposed, either by a judicial process or an administrative procedure. And that's another key theme. So the law, Woodall talks about this on starting at 477. The law really prefers a judicial process. However, in practice, it's more common to see administrative procedures. What's the difference? The judicial process has more steps. It's more complicated. It's also more protective of the rights of the accused. And it's the person judging. It's going to be a judge or maybe a panel of judges, usually. In the administrative procedure, there is the person judging is probably going to be the bishop himself. It's probably the really the same person who started the procedure. Well, how do these things get rolling? Okay, there's an accusation, and this is Canon 1717, and the first thing that the bishop or the ordinary has to do is decide, is there evidence that a crime or a delict has been committed and that a particular person is responsible? If the answer to those two questions is yes, then the ordinary, again, I think it's really always going to be the bishop, not just the vicar general, decides on either a judicial process or an administrative procedure. And if you want, next time we can talk about the differences, what the steps are. I don't think we should do it today, though. The law says you need just reasons for an administrative procedure, and in as I say, in actual practice, it's more common to see the administrative procedure. This is something really to keep an eye on when we're looking at the reform coming of law. This is probably going to, I think we can almost say definitely going to be something to be focused on. Is the preference still for a judicial process? And if so, how easy is it for the church authority to say, well, I think I've got a situation where the administrative procedure is better? Really, if a bishop has a chance, or an ordinary has a chance, and really all of us would, I think, probably do the same thing if we were in that position. If you have a choice between a judicial process and an administrative procedure, almost everyone would choose the administrative procedure. It's easier for the person in authority. So it's not saying people are evil or intentionally denying rights, but the law, the assumption of the judicial process is more protective of the rights of the accused. So that's a big thing to keep an eye on. Very important for priestly life. Let's see what else on the application. We already said, we talked in an answer to Mr. Blatchford's question, that penalty applies everywhere, but could be lifted by the local authority, the local bishop. Also, in danger of death, the penalty is suspended to let the offender receive the sacraments. Okay, I think we've got just enough time to our last. So there's going to be more on administrative versus judicial. Keep an eye out for that. You'll see that mentioned in SST for sure. I think in the Essential Norms of Dallas as well. That's a key thing. I may have something I can send you, because there was a student last semester who asked about that, and so we did a list of the steps to see how different they were. But this this video, if you had a chance to watch it, we said we'd get to it today. We're probably not quite going to get to it. Specific delicts and penalties. That's what the video for today is on. But as we said last time, it's fine to watch it either for today or next time. Though it adds, now you may have 3 videos for next time you haven't watched already. This I don't think will be too difficult. It just goes through here's a list of 20 or 30 crimes, and here's the penalty. Here's the ones you should kind of know. But after we talk about those, we're going to talk about cessation of penalties, how a penalty stops. But we need to preview cessation of penalties just in a couple instances so that we can mention a couple of terms. One is, you'll see the term reserved to the Apostolic See, or when you get to SST, reserved to CDF, Congregation for Doctrine of the Faith. Reserved means that's who has to lift it. If it's the attack on you murder the Pope, that is reserved to the Holy See to lift that penalty. So that's what reserved to the Apostolic See is going to mean. Woodall also talks about he says, talks about penalties reserved to the diocesan bishop. The code does not talk about penalties reserved to the diocesan bishop, but Woodall does. What Woodall means, I think, is penalties that are not reserved to the apostolic see, so presumably they come to the diocesan bishop. However, there's some penalties, one we really think of as abortion, that you as an individual confessor are going to have the, not from the law, but from practice, from the Pope's decree and from your own bishops, you're going to have the faculty to absolve that. And somebody last year told me about a diocese where the confessors also have that for apostasy, heresy, and schism. So it might be one of your dioceses. But so when Woodall says reserved to the diocesan bishop, I think he just means ones that are in that middle category, that are, they're not reserved to the, they're not, I should get here so our brothers can see, they're not reserved to the apostolic see, but they're not in the category that you have the authority to, as an individual confessor, to absolve. So it's really, what we're really talking about is everything that is not reserved to the Holy See, pretty much other than abortion, right? Because that's the one almost everybody has the faculty to absolve. So I think that's what Woodall means. I think he's trying to help, and I think it's understood that way. It's helpful. I'm sorry, we're over, so I'll stop. But we'll, if you're not clear on that, send me an email, and we'll try to clear it up by Moodle, or if not, then next time. Thank you.